This conference will now be recorded.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good
I,
evening.
this is Chairman Elliott speaking. I greet each and every one of you here. I am kind of under the weather, and I am under doctor's care. So I've asked Vice Chairman Drury if he would moderate our meeting tonight. So I'm going to be asking that he would come in at this time. I believe he just left the
Can
meeting.
anyone hear me?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Drury. We can hear you, Mr. Drury. We will get started, and hopefully he can come in and take in for me. But at this time, we are so grateful to have clergy with us. The meeting is now called to order. We're going to ask now if Reverend Charles Cypress, if will come and give us our invocation.
Okay, great. Pleasant good evening to everyone. To Chairman Dr. Elliott, members of the board, Mrs. Rollins, and those attending. First of all, we're grateful for your leadership, for your efforts and desire to invoke God's presence, His guidance, His direction in your meetings. I commend you all for that. With that, shall we pray? Let us pray. Our Father and our God, we honor you. We bless you for your loving kindness and your tender mercies. We are thankful for this opportunity to call again upon your holy and righteous name. We are thankful for this body, the Surrey County Board of Supervisors. They, knowing the value and importance of prayer, and are seeking you for guidance and direction, realizing that they need your help as they are making decisions that will affect our community. And I believe they desire decisions that will bring peace, unity, and prosperity to our county. So, Lord, we submit them to you. Tonight, be with them, guide their thoughts, and give them direction. Allow them to execute righteous judgment in their decision making so that judgment might run down as waters and righteousness as a mighty stream. Hear our prayer, O Lord. Hear our prayer, O Lord. Incline thine ear unto us and give us your peace. In the matchless name of the Lord Jesus, we pray. Thank God. Amen. God bless you.
Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you. Thank you, Elder Cypress, for leading us in prayer. And now we will have a moment of silence. Thank you. At this time, could we check and see if Mr. Drury is available? Can you speak now, Mr. Drury? Okay. We're going to ask Ms. Little if you will lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance tonight.
Okay. Board members, if you would repeat with me the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Little. Fellow board members, we have before us the agenda for tonight for our September 3rd, 2020 meeting. Before we have our agenda, we need our virtual statement given to us by our legal team. So we're going to ask Ms. Powell if she's here, if she would render that for us at this time.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board, and all those that are here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. This meeting is being held electronically due to the COVID-19 pandemic, which has made it unsafe to assemble a quorum in a single location. This meeting is convening by GoToMeetings as posted on the county's website. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Powell. Fellow board members, you have before you the agenda for our September the 3rd, 2020 meeting. Could we get a roll call vote for the adoption of this agenda for this meeting tonight, Ms. Chapman?
Excuse me, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Just wait, if you get 1 second, I'm going to join Mr. Drury to the meeting so that way he can make the roll call. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Drury.
Yes. I'm here.
Okay, Mr. Drew, we at the roll call vote now. Could you please take over at this time? I greatly appreciate it.
Let me, Reverend Elliott, Mr. Brown cut off. He called me, but I've still got technical difficulties here. I'm hearing it twice. I'm not sure whether I'm supposed to turn my phone off or turn the computer off or just what. I need further instructions.
You probably just want to maybe turn your speakers down on your computer a little bit. Okay. That may solve the issue.
Can I not mute myself on? I'm so
now,
sorry for this.
How about now, Mr. Drury?
Hello?
Can you hear us clear? How about now, Mr. Drury? Can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yep, we don't have an echo now.
So I'm supposed to keep my phone on?
Yes, sir. You can keep your phone on and just talk from there, and then you have your computer to see whatever's being presented visually.
All right. Thank you. And my apologies, I'm of that, but computer glitches. Reverend Elliott, I'm kind of lost as where we are.
Sir, we're at the adoption of the agenda for our meeting tonight for the roll call vote from Ms. Chapman.
Okay, Ms. Chapman, could you give us a roll call vote for the agenda adoption?
Yes, Mr. Drury. Roll call, Mr. Elliott.
Yes.
Mr. Drury.
Yes.
Ms. Little.
Yes.
Mr. Holmes. Mr. Calhoun.
I do not believe Mr. Holmes is going to be here this evening, and Mr. Calhoun was also having difficulties getting in.
Okay, thank you.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, can hear you.
I said yes on the adoption, agenda adoption.
Thank you, Mr. Calhoun.
The agenda has been adopted. Next, we have the consent item. At the draft meeting for August the 6th and August the 13th. Accounts payable report 2,274,704.08. Request for a public hearing on October the 1st for lease of county property by PGEC, Prince George Electric. Request for a public hearing on the second allocation of the CARES Act funding. A school system FY 2021 school system budget amendment of $79,440 reduction in the total budget. A FY 2021 appropriation of CARES Act funding for the Department of Elections at $46,380. Surrey County Treasurer refund request for overpaid taxes, Core Logic in the amount of $3,011.82. And the readoption of the ordinance to extend the emergency ordinance concerning continuity of government. Do board members have any questions or discussion? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move, Judy Little, that we adopt the consent items as have been enumerated.
Is that second?
Tim Calhoun seconds.
Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, sir. Roll call, Mr. Elliott.
Yes.
Mr. Drury.
Yes.
Ms. Little.
Yes.
And Mr. Calhoun.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next item is new business, amendment to Surrey seafood lease, and I think Ms. Rollins will be handling that.
Yes. Good evening, Vice Chairman Drury, Chairman Mr. Elliott, Board of Supervisors, and all who have joined virtually this evening. Ms. Powell is on the call, and she is going to go over the request from the Surrey Seafood Company to amend the lease. And if you have any questions, either myself or Ms. Carol Swindell will be on the call to answer any questions as it pertains to the operational update that was provided in your agenda packet this evening. At this time, I will ask Ms. Powell over that lease amendment request.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, Vice Chair, members of the board, and all those that are here tonight. The purpose of this agenda item is for informational purposes to keep the board up to date about the Grace Creek Marina lease. As you know, in 2018, the board, or the previous board, entered into a lease agreement with the Pack brothers, who are now known as the Surrey Seafood Company, to operate the Grace Creek Marina, the restaurant, the marina slips, and the dockmaster office. Recently, the Pack brothers, aka the Surrey Seafood Company, has recently exercised their option to extend the lease for an additional 5 years. The current lease term ends February of 2021, and so the new lease term would begin March 1st of 2021, and it would go through February 8th of 2026. As a part of that lease extension, there have been items that are amended. One of them, like I just said, is that the lease term will begin in 2021 and go through 2026. The second item is that the Surrey Seafood Company will no longer be required to operate the marina store to sell items other than fuel, and that the dock master that's a part of the current lease agreement will be working when the parties deem that an employee is necessary, but not as a requirement to be a seasonal employee. And the last amendment will be that the rent will be increased by an additional 5%. So that will lead to a little over $2,500 in additional revenue to the county. And that is in addition to the rent increase from 2019. Because this lease allows for the option to renew, this item does not require any action from the board, but it is provided for informational purposes, and I'm happy to help answer any questions that the board may have. Thank you.
Board member, are there questions? If none, I have one. Ms. Powell, can you hear me?
Yes, sir, I can hear you.
Just right before the meeting, I pulled up the old lease of 2018. And in section 4, it says the option to renew, leasee to have the option to renew this lease for successive 5-year terms, if not in default, and can be exercised given not less than 60 days from the end of the lease. In the next section, it says the terms and conditions of the lease for the renewal term may be modified by mutual agreement of the parties. I'm not understanding if there are changes in the terms of the lease, why the board doesn't have to vote on it.
Mr. Jury, that's a good question, and if the board wants to vote on it, the board can. We're of the opinion that the board does not need to, because there is, like you said, as you read, there is the option to renew, and so they're exercising their right to do so, and there are those amendments. So because the board approved the lease as is, and there's just some amendments to it to renew it, we don't think that there's a need to vote on it, but if the board wants to, the board can.
I'm still, my understanding of this lease is that they want to renew this same lease, that we don't have to vote on it. In other words, they have the option, but I'm still not understanding. It clearly says in here, terms and conditions are modified, that the parties, both parties, Surrey County Board and the leasee, has to vote. I don't understand your interpretation at all. Anyway, I've got citizens, and I know that other board members have got citizens that won't be happy if in other words, if this lease is amended without board input. This is my 2 cents worth. If your legal position is that it does not have to be, but I heard terms and conditions, I don't legally agree with that, but that's your position, and other board members don't want to, that's fine. Again, I don't understand the legal interpretation at all.
Mr. Drury, this is Tim Calhoun. I also would like for the board, if we agree to vote on this amendment with some further conversations with the current contract lease agreement, excuse me.
And Mr. Vice Chair, this is Judy Little. I also agree that the board should adopt this, that it should be a adopted resolution because there are several changes. And I understand what our attorney is saying, and she says it doesn't matter one way or the other. It's nothing going to be, So she doesn't object to our doing it. It's just that it does not have to be done, but I think that we should.
Thank you. Reverend Elliott, any comments on that?
I'm in agreement with the board. Whichever direction the board, the majority goes, I'm in agreement.
Ms. Rollins, is there going to be any harm if we bring this back at our next meeting?
No, sir, at the pleasure of the board. If that's what you all want to do, we can bring it back at the next meeting. You can maybe check with Ms. Powell just to see whether or not, as far as the date in which they need to do the name change, whether or not there's any stipulations with time with that. If not, then I see no problems with bringing it back to the next meeting for your reconsideration.
No, I'm not aware of the name change being an issue, Ms. Rollins. I'll double check their bylaws, but I thought that had already occurred. I'm looking at it now.
You're correct.
It already occurred. So I don't think that there's a timing issue if the board wants to bring it back at the next meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Understanding that's board consensus to bring it back?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Any further discussion? Let's move on to the next item, a public hearing comprehensive plan update. I think that's Mr. David Harrison.
Yes. Good evening, Vice Chairman Drury, Chairman Elliott, board members, Mrs. Rollins, and everyone virtually assembled. At this time, I would like to give a brief background on the proposed Surrey County 2040 comp plan, and then give way to Mr. Greg Grutendorf from the Hampton Roads Planning District Commission to present the proposed comp plan. Surrey County's comprehensive plan is a blueprint that provides guidance about how the community will move forward into the future. The plan incorporates the visions of residents, businesses, and local officials. Surrey County faces many choices about the community it wants to become. The plan provides direction for making these decisions in a way that will allow the county to continue transforming itself into a community that is consistent with its vision and goals. The plan addresses four main questions in setting the course for physical, social, and economic development of the county. The questions are: what is the current status of the county? What do trends indicate about the county's future? What are the county's goals for the future? And how can it achieve those goals? Meaningful public participation was essential in developing a plan that addresses the concerns, needs, and aspirations of the Surrey County and its residents. Surrey County and Hampton Roads PDC staff met with several groups representing different aspects of the community during the planning process. Meetings were held with the Tourism Advisory Committee, Economic Development Authority, Surrey County Chamber of Commerce, Youth Citizens Board, and Surrey County High School students to identify important issues and the priorities of each group. The Planning Commission used what it heard from these groups to structure the plan around common vision and themes. And at this time, I would like to give way to Mr. Grutendorf, who is the Chief Economics for the Hampton Roads Planning District Commission, who will present the 2040 comprehensive plan. Thank you.
Good evening, members of the board, Ms. Rollins, Mr. Harrison. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
And can you see my screen? I just had, a last minute glitch, of course, as that always happens when you transfer screens. Can everybody see the Surrey County Comprehensive Plan on my screen?
Yes.
I can,
Yes.
Fantastic. All right, you'll have to give me a minute to maximize the screen. It's really a pleasure to be here with you tonight. The comprehensive planning process is a very long process, and this initiative started back in 2016 with Mr. Tyrone Franklin, who solicited us to do an update to what was the 2006 Surrey County Comprehensive Plan. And so here we are today. We initiated the contracts in 2017, and now I'm going to take you through a series of slides that explains what was in the plan. As you've heard, the Planning Commission recommended approval to the plan, and now it's up to the Board of Supervisors. So without further ado, really, what is the comprehensive plan and what makes a good comprehensive plan? When we looked at the 2006 comprehensive plan, really what it was an antiquated plan that really kind of listed the county's assets and what was in the county. It wasn't so much of a plan as really just a stagnant document. And so here I am presenting tonight kind of the third string batter here as Mr. Saunders, who was part of this process, and Mr. Matt Smith, who is the main preparer of this plan, have moved on to different places, and I've been here since the get-go, but I remember being back in the office in 2017, and we were having a discussion, what do we want with a comp plan, with a new revised comp plan that was different from the antiquated 2006 plan. And really what we were trying to do is answer 5 questions here for the county. Who are we? Where are we going? Where do we want to go? And how do we get there? And then later on, as we go through this process, we ask, are we there yet? Really multiple ways you can do this. The way we did this, there's 5 steps in the planning process: plan initiation, data collection and analysis, plan preparation, and the plan review and adoption. That's a point that we are at today. And then following the adoption, then we would move to plan implementation and review. So there's a lot of slides, so I'm going to run through these pretty quickly. You all should have the slide deck along with the comprehensive plan, so please feel free to stop me, ask me any questions, but I'm going to fly through these slides pretty quickly. We look at the point of emphasis. There's really several things we want to do. Certainly economic development, particularly job creation and retail, was important. Preservation of Surrey County's character was very important. We wanted to improve the mapping that was in the previous plan and including development of more detailed land use plan. And we had a GIS analysis done by Sarah Kidd at the Planning District Commission. She did a phenomenal job on that. I think you'll be excited. We wanted to better organize the plan and put the prioritization of goals and objectives, make it visually engaging. But more than anything else, we wanted to tell Surrey County's story. So what we really started here with was the community vision, because this isn't the PDC plan. This wasn't, we're the ones who wrote it up, but this is really Surrey County plan. And when we're getting the community vision, then we really wanted to hear from the residents. Like we had over a dozen meetings with community groups, stakeholders throughout the community to try parse out what the vision is. And the reality is, well, when we ask a lot of people, what do you want the county to look like? Well, they want the county to look like what it looks like right now. But change will happen, whether you want it to or not. Change is happening. If we look at the world how it is today, it certainly doesn't look like it did last year, nor does it look like it did 20 years ago. So what we want to do is plan for the change the best way that we can. And the community vision really was kind of balanced. We want to plan for change while respecting the past and the present. We want to strive to be a community of choice for residents and businesses, and we want to proactively and continually seek opportunities to improve the county. So we start out with existing conditions. What does the county look like right now? And we broke it out into several categories: socioeconomic, land use, natural resources, transportation and infrastructure, government and finance, and community facilities. And if we look at the socioeconomic conditions and trends in Surrey County, the one thing that jumps out to us pretty quickly is we know that Surrey County has not seen a great deal of population growth. And in recent years, there's actually been population decline. And that's different than what we've seen in Hampton Roads, Virginia, in the US. We're looking at social conditions too. We also see that Surrey County is aging different than, you know, the traditional population pyramid that you would see where it's in the shape of a triangle. That's not how the population histogram in Surrey County is. The age distribution tends toward the elderly, which is very different, and that makes it important consideration for planning goals. If we look at the existing land use, we can see that there's really clustered planning around the town of Surrey and Claremont and Dendron. But what you see, you have a lot of agricultural and forest, and then clustered zones of conservation, recreation, and other land uses as well. The economic trends and conditions, these of course are all in the plan, and we're just hitting some of the highlights here. One of the things that's very interesting about Surrey County is the people who work in the county don't live in the county, and the people who live in the county don't work in the county. So a lot of the county residents leave the county to go to work elsewhere, in places like Newport News. And a lot of the people working in the county, especially at the power plant, don't live in the county. So that's an important consideration, especially when you're looking at the planning process. We look at the natural resource conditions and trends. We can kind of see where the wetlands are. We did a really comprehensive mapping analysis to locate the natural resources in the plan. Transportation and infrastructure. Existing resources, you can see the main corridors that come through the county through 31 and 10 and on 40 as well. And we're talking about government resources. One of the things that really sets Surrey County apart from most any other jurisdiction, well, from any other jurisdiction in the Commonwealth, is the Surrey Power Plant provides a huge component of the local tax revenue, over 60%. And when we talk about, we talk about the power plant quite a bit throughout the comprehensive plan because it's such a significant player in the comprehensive plan. One of the things that's pretty well known about the power plant is that it won't be there forever. And so one of the things we can do is start planning for a future without the power plant now, and it would be a wise decision to start planning for a future without it, especially when it comes to things like local tax revenue. A little bit more on trends and conditions in the county. Here you can see here when we look at county health rankings by the Robert Johnson Foundation, you can see there's things that Surrey County certainly needs to work on. Smoking rates, obesity rates are higher than they are across the state. Food environment index is lower, access to exercise opportunities. Some positives, the teen birth rate is lower, preventable hospital stays are lower, diabetes monitoring is above the state average. Of course, these are a little bit old numbers now, especially when we're looking at unemployment, and the poverty rates are going to go up, but both the unemployment rate are higher than the Commonwealth average, as is child poverty rates, and then the commute times in the county. So the comprehensive plan is essentially divided into 4 chapters: enhancing quality of life, Surrey County future land use, transportation, economic growth, and diversification. And I think one of the interesting things as an economist, a lot of people really want to jump to economic growth and diversification, but I can assure you that the reality is the #1 thing that people really want is quality of life. You want the quality of life to be the highest it can be, and that includes many, many components. We look at the plan framework of how we kind of come across this plan. And we start with it, like I said before, the community vision. We had dozens of meetings. We solicited input across the community. Again, we really wanted this to be the Surrey County, the community's comprehensive plan. Once we had that community vision, we came up with themes, common themes that were through the various meetings, goals, objectives, and with the Planning Commission, we developed the objectives and strategies. So I'm going to touch base on these goals, objectives, and strategies for each of the different chapters, starting with enhancing quality of life. So, like I said, the primary purpose of any comp plan or planning process, I believe, should be enhancing quality of life. And that includes housing, transportation, economy, environment, county services. All things impact that quality of life. You know, and then we look at what the county has some influence over, and we look at community institutions and character and expanding opportunities. So the characteristics that we're really trying to preserve here is safe and community oriented, schools that are a source of pride. Surrey County has great schools, rural residential housing, that rural feel, family supporting incomes and low cost of living, exceptional natural resources, and of course the preservation of historic assets. Opportunities to pursue, these are the things that we want, is retaining and attracting young residents. I showed you that population histogram that shows the aging residents. Really for the future, we're looking at trying to attract young residents, housing choices for all residents, so there's choices across the board, access to natural resources, broadband access, which we are working on, and as a region, and Surrey County certainly a part of that. Relationships with residents and town governments. We want to build on those relationships, healthy living opportunities, and then capital investments to ensure future prosperity. The goals and objectives, of course, preserve important community institutions, connections, and characters to serve as a foundation to build this Surrey County of the future. So that's really the main goal. Provide services that enrich residents' lives and instill pride in the community, conserve and encourage utilization of Surrey's exceptional natural resources, preserve valued aspects of the community that make traditional character of Surrey County. Next goal and objective, Surrey will be creative and proactive about identifying and pursuing partnerships with organizations to help increase opportunities available to the residents. And this means provide quality housing choices for all Surrey residents, make Surrey the most connected rural community in Hampton Roads. And the government of Surrey County will work with an efficient and in an efficient and transparent manner to advance the long-term interests of the county and its residents. Moving on to the next chapter, Surrey County future land use. So we have planning priorities. We're looking at the rural character, growing the economy and the tax base, and commercial options. The challenges here are inducing investment, minimizing conflict, and spurring population growth. When we look at the future land use strategy, we want to make sure that we are planning for rural preservation and strategically focusing development places like the Route 31 corridor. Here you can see a future land use map that we put together based on the current land use map and the direction that was given to us by the Planning Commission and the residents. And this is the proposed future land use map for this county. And you can see how really development fills in along that 31 corridor and in addition into the towns. Land use categories, environmental preservation, rural preservation, residential investment areas, the commercial corridor, employment centers, and then of course public land. trying to move things around on my screen here, so hopefully you can see a little more, make sure we're looking at the same things. With respect to rural preservation, we want to preserve the working farm and forest lands, take care of the environmentally sensitive land, and preserve low density residential. The intent is to promote continued use of working lands, protect the sensitive lands, avoid concentrations of residential land use, and certainly preserve the rural character. With respect to the residential corridor, this is a secondary option for low to moderate density single family residential. One of the things that we see coming up, a need that we see coming up in the county, is perhaps a little more density in housing as people want to age in place. A lot of people, when they're aging, they want to remain in the county atmosphere, but they don't want to be moving, and they want services brought to them, and to keep those efficiencies in place, and a little bit more density makes sense. Again, we talked about the Route 31 corridor, close proximity to the good schools we have, towns and employment areas. The intent is to induce and concentrate investment. If we want to see investment, we want it to be efficient, we want it to generate jobs, and we have to make sure that it's somewhat concentrated. Offset population decline, sustain commercial uses, bolster the tax base, and revitalize the towns of Surrey and Dendron. The land use principles induce strategic investment, prosperity, and preservation are not incompatible. Strategically concentrate new investment, as we talked about, and use existing capacity to minimize cost. Look at the goals, the objectives, and the strategies. A future land use goal: Surrey will maintain its rural character, but will actively pursue high-quality residential and economically productive commercial investment. Continued goals and objectives. Internal and external investment will be focused around the town of Surrey and the Route 31 corridor. The preservation of working lands and natural areas is the highest priority outside the Route 31 corridor. Objective 3, strengthen Surrey's financial position by considering the fiscal impact of land use policy decisions. And then objective 4, seek to provide appropriate high quality housing choices for all Surrey residents. Moving on to chapter 3, transportation, more than just roadways. A lot of people, when we think about transportation, we just think of roads. It's certainly more than that. We want to focus on convenient and interregional connections, safe roads, and alternative transportation structure. When we look at the planning framework, we looked at what VDOT has. As Surrey County is part of the Hampton Roads Planning District Commission, it's also part of the Crater Planning District Commission, and part of their Rural Long Range Transportation Plan. That's the LRTP. So in alignment with the Surrey County's LRTP from the Crater Metropolitan Planning Organization, we see strategic growth and rural preservation once again as core principles. The long-range transportation plan focuses on the efficient movement of goods and people, safety, economic vitality, improved quality of life, and maintain the existing system. So you can see here's a map that comes from the LRTP, and it talks about the operational deficiency, safety deficiency, and geometric deficiencies within the system, and planning for increased efficiency in that component. Transportation planning has multiple benefits. When we consider this, we look at the strategic planning component. We include the bicycle and pedestrian plan, as well as multimodal Main Street, where we see multi-uses of different modes all in one place. Multimodal Main Street, we're looking for something that is user-friendly and safe, enjoyable, a visual improvement to public space, so it looks like a place you want to actually be, and so in doing so, looking to incentivize private investment. So here's just an example, of light posts and sidewalks that make for a more visually stimulating area. So we say more than just roadways for our transportation. Surrey County's transportation system will enable convenient interregional connections and further Surrey County's land use, placemaking, and economic development goals. Key principles: transportation planning is about more than moving vehicles. We have to know the system. We have to use the system. Transportation planning is really data driven, so we need to follow the numbers, not just the number of cars and the number of vehicles, but we also have to look at how we pay for things and how much money we have to pay for things, and always consider the potential for multiple benefits. Can we hit two birds with one stone, so to speak? Primary objective: the first objective, provide safe and convenient connections to Hampton Roads and the Richmond regions. Objective 2, Surrey County's highest priority transportation projects should provide multiple benefits to residents and further strategic objectives of the Surrey County Comprehensive Plan, the Comprehensive Bicycle and Pedestrian Plan, as well as other plans. Moving on to the next chapter, economic growth and diversification. And wrapping up here shortly. When we look at the economy is so many things. It's not just one thing. It's not just businesses. It's not just employers or employees. The economy really touches on everything from government to major employers such as the Surrey Power Station, regional influences from Hampton Roads, from the historic Triangle region all the way up to Richmond. It looks at the construction and the trades, and of course, agriculture, wood, tourism. There's many components of the economy that really all work together. And we look at Surrey County. Surrey County is kind of in the middle between Richmond and Hampton Roads, and it's part of these regional economies. The Hampton Roads economy, which is the second largest regional economy in Virginia, generally underperforms a state in the U.S., very much dependent on a three-legged stool, so to speak, the tourism and defense, and the port, which is really what drives the Hampton Roads economy. And we have advanced manufacturing, food processing, port logistics, business service. That's really what is driving the regional economy of Hampton Roads, which Surrey is a part of. Then if we move over to Richmond, so Surrey is between the second and the third largest regional economies and plays a part in both. Richmond has been generally outperforming the state in the U.S., has a relatively diverse economy. There's creative services, financial services, defense and security, bioscience, logistics, advanced manufacturing. So although Surrey is between Richmond and Hampton Roads, we recognize that it is a rural economy. Local industries are very important, resource-dependent industries, and certainly the traded industries that bring outside money in. There's really several macroeconomic trends that are going on, and the purpose of this section is really setting the stage to grow Surrey's next economy. So we're looking at what local opportunities are there: tourism, recreation, retirement living. That is one where we keep the existing residents living in Surrey and provide them with the requisite services that they're going to want and need so that they stay in the county. We can look at the town of Surrey revitalization, which impacts both recreation and tourism, joint industrial development, clean energy, and then of course there's a lot that we don't know. There's a lot of things that are up and coming, and we have to keep an open mind about other potential opportunities for the county. But when we look at where the jobs are, and over time, we recognize that jobs in agricultural, while the productivity stays the same and actually increases, the number of jobs associated with agricultural goes down. Services have been going up. Manufacturing kind of moves up and down. So we do have to look towards the future when thinking about the county's economy. We look for principles for growth and diversification. You know, there is never any crystal ball. We don't know the golden hoop, so to speak, that you can grab onto. That doesn't exist. So we want to be strategic, and we want to think incrementally. How do we make the best use of the resources we have, and how do we take positive steps to improve our situation? Business attraction is only part of the puzzle. We want to focus on ecosystem of development, leverage regional strengths, use them in the county, invest in the workforce and the youth. You know, we start with good schools, but it goes beyond that. It goes to training, goes to workforce, and then prioritize community reinvestment. Take what we have, make it stronger, see what works and help it to grow. So the community reinvestment is really key. The focus sectors here, cultivating businesses that really improve quality of life in Surrey's local economy, attracting retirees to Surrey County, supporting entrepreneurs and small businesses. Of course, we want to maintain Surrey's heritage economy. We want to design effective community development strategies, and tourism and recreation are certainly part of that. And in growing Surrey's economic base, really the intent is to spur investment in excess of what markets can do alone. So we certainly want to let the markets play, but the purpose of or what Surrey County can do is, how do we grease the wheels? How do we make this better than just what the markets are going to do if they're acting on their own? And we really want to choose the right strategies, so we're constantly have to be evaluating what can be done, focus on supporting entrepreneurs and business attraction. You know, it's very hard for the government to pick winners. And when I look at where we want to make investments, we don't want to pick the winners. We want the winners to show themselves, to emerge, and then we really want to help support them. We need to understand the regional industry clusters to which Surrey can contribute, especially in logistics. Make targeted investments that strengthen regional clusters. So when we make an investment that we know that it's paying out, consider joint site development, and that includes with other localities. Learn from business attraction success, you know, not just those right around us in Surrey County and the region, but even abroad. What are successful strategies? Let's try to take advantage of that. And finally, align training with workforce needs. So we're looking at our skilled traded careers, not only in our community colleges, but also in our schools. That completes my presentation on the comp plan. I really would like to thank the Surrey County Planning Commission who guided us through this process, the many residents and the people who showed up for a public hearing, and to help guide the plan, the community organizations, and of course the Surrey County staff, who is integral as well. That concludes my comments. I'll be happy to answer any questions, or help David answer any questions that you might have.
Board members, any questions?
I don't have any questions, Mr. Drew. I just want to say that the comp plan that's been presented is totally in line with the plan that the board had set out at the beginning of the year. So we look like we're on the same page. We know what to do to make Surrey County what we will have it to be. So I thank him for the presentation tonight.
Thanks. Anyone else? Ms. Rollins, is my understanding this is supposed to be a public hearing tonight?
Yes, sir. I was about to say that. Absolutely, Mr. Jury.
Are we ready to open the floor for comments?
Yes, sir. We are ready to open the public hearing.
And is there anyone out there that would like to speak to the comp plan? Going once and twice. Not hearing anyone. I'll close the public hearing.
Mr. Drury?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Mr. Drury, this is Bob Chandler. How are you doing this evening?
Yes. Doing fine.
I just
Would you
had
like to speak?
one comment. I'm sorry? Good evening, Mr. Drury, Mr. Elliott, and the rest of the Board of Supervisors. I just had one question. The Economic Development Authority had input for the comprehensive plan, but I'm not aware of any meeting that we were ever invited to participate in the development. The plan sounds good and makes common sense, and certainly we would support it, but I was just curious about the input that we had. We never got any feedback on it, if it was included or considered, etc. That's all my only comment.
And thank you, Mr. Chandler. Are there any more comments?
This is Judy Little. Mike, are you ready for board comments?
Yeah, that's fine, Ms. Little.
Okay. In this process, and it was a long process, so I'm sorry that Mr. Chandler feels like the EDA was not consulted, but they were, and they did give input. It may have been before he was involved, but the EDA did have input and were attending our meetings. But we appreciate his thoughts on that, and it is a good plan. It is a working plan, so it's not anything that is concrete. There's still a lot of work to be done in order to get what we need to do for Surrey County. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Little. And I think I closed the public hearing, and so I have officially closed it. Any other board members? If not, I have one comment from Mr. Grotendorst. And maybe I missed it, but was solar energy considered in the comp plan?
Absolutely. It was one of the, if you look in the comp plan, it's 157 pages long. So certainly I didn't present everything here, but solar power was certainly referred to in the comp plan. And I wish I could pull you the page number that you could refer to, but that was a component that was a good amount of time was spent on.
So is there some guidance to the board on that in that comp plan?
I think the guidance there is to the Planning Commission to develop solar in a way that really benefits the county, and in doing so to come up with the guidelines, and perhaps Mr. Harrison can speak more to the specifics of those guidelines. But really what when we were looking at solar power, we really wanted the county to evaluate solar power in such a way that it derives the maximum amount of benefit from solar farms that get located in the county. Mr. Harrison, I don't know if you can speak further to that.
Yes, sir. And outline. Yes, sir. And outline a region or areas that we would like to see solar development concentrated. And we can do that with amendments to the comp plan as we already have noted in our solar ordinance. So it kind of is in line with what we have in our solar ordinances. Planned development for solar.
And thank you, Mr. Harrison and Mr. Grotendorst. Any other board members? Any discussion? Are we ready for a motion? Staff have any, let me back up. Staff, any closing comments?
Yes, sir. Just would like to thank Mr. Grutendorf, HRPDC, and the Planning Commission staff, stakeholders for their contributions toward the comp plan.
And thank you, Mr. Harrison. Board members, discussion or motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we would adopt the 2040 comprehensive plan for Surrey County.
Thank you, Ms. Little. And do I have a second?
Mr. Elliott, I second the motion.
We've got a motion with a second. May I have the roll call, please?
Yes, roll call, Mr. Elliott,
Yes.
Mr. Drury,
Yes.
Little,
Yes.
Mr. Calhoun.
Yes.
So motion carried. And thank you all for your work on that. Mr. Harrison, staff, and Mr. Grotendorf, we really appreciate it. And I know it's a work in progress, and the county, we should still continue to look at it and refine it and amend it in the future as well. The next item on the agenda is public comments. As been stated in the past, you may send in public comments while we have these electronic meetings to the county. I know that the board members have received a couple of comments for the night from Mike and Helen Eggleston concerning the war memorials, and it's my understanding that the public will be able to view these comments in the meeting minutes for the night when they're published. And thank you again for the comments. They are read and considered. Thanks again. Board member comments. Mr. Elliott?
Thank you for filling in for Mr. Drury. I really appreciate it as we continue to strive to do all we can to betterment of Surrey County.
Thank you, and hope you get to feeling a little better. And sorry for the only glitch I've had when we came into electronic meetings, I think. But anyway, Ms. Little?
No comments.
Mr. Calhoun?
Yes, sir, Mr. Drury. Once again, I would just like to address the issue regarding the public comments that are written in. You know, if we could have them read during the meeting, I think it helps us to be more transparent to the county and those who are attending virtually. You know, some folks don't have computers and can see those comments in the agenda. It would be just personally, I think it would be helpful for everybody to hear, you know, what each district has comments on.
And thank you, Mr. Calhoun. I know that's a concern of yours and your citizens. In far as myself, again, apologies for the glitches in the very beginning, and thanks for the patience. And I'm totally amazed at Mr. Brown, and I'm sure he's still around. Mr. Dion Brown, thank you so much. I don't know how you do it, but in a matter of minutes, you had me back up and online. So thanks so much. Next, and Ms. Rollins, do you want to take over? I know there's presentations and staff reports, and introduce them.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Drury. The first item underneath presentations and staff reports is the report from the county's financial advisor, Davenport & Company. On the August 6th agenda, they did present to the Board of Supervisors a financial review, including recommendations for financing the county's capital improvement projects planned for fiscal year 2021. Also, it included an option to participate in the 2020 fall VRA pool program. Of course, participation in this program does require the approval of the Board of Supervisors via resolutions authorizing the financing, and we do have a date to consider this by September the 25th. Because they have presented to the board on August the 6th, and we do understand that the deadline of September 24th in terms of getting that application to VRA. So we wanted to have a second opportunity for them to come back to the board and to explain again the process and to provide some additional information so that when you do consider this before September 25th, you have a little bit more information. So at this time, I will ask Mr. Cal Locks, who is with Davenport and Company, to come on to do that presentation. And I also want to say that Ms. Carol Swindell has been actively engaged in this process. And if you have any questions, I'm sure that Mr. Locks and or Mrs. Swindell would be more than happy to answer your questions after his presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa, and Mr. Chairman, members of the board. It's nice to see you again this evening. Again, even if electronically, I should start and just make sure. Can everybody hear me okay? Does this work?
Yes.
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 Okay, very good. We appreciate it. Always kind of got to test it out. You know, kind of keep your fingers crossed that it works out okay. And to Ms. Rollins' point, you may recall, just what felt like a couple weeks ago, but was early August, my colleague David Rose and I made a presentation to you, which we appreciated the opportunity to do, is sort of a big picture, we call maybe a financial review, looking at Surrey County in terms of its overall finances. And we'd like to do this evening, as Ms. Rollins alluded to, is to narrow the focus a little bit, given the fact that we do have this opportunity to participate in the fall Virginia Resources Authority pool program. And so to that end, we've got a couple slides that I'll put up on the screen here and walk you through. Happy to answer any questions as we go, or you can save them to the end. I'll defer to you, Mr. Chair and Vice Chair. So again, we call this the Fall 2020 VRA Financing Update. We kind of alluded to this in our last presentation, but we want to take the opportunity to talk more specifically about it and the various components that you have available to you, and what the interest rate markets look like right now. So if we flip the page, as we think about, again, the components of what you have available to you in that sense with this fall 2020 VRA program, it's really twofold. If you can see the screen here, we have both a refinancing opportunity, meaning taking some of our existing debt within Surrey County and refinancing it for a lower interest rate, freeing some cash flow while not extending the final maturity. And the second opportunity is to take care of what we call new money, which is, as we understand it, capital projects that have been identified by you, by staff. We understand a number of those are kind of pent up in that way. And we have an opportunity to take both the refinancing portion and the new money portion, combine them into a single financing, and use this, what we call VRA, or Virginia Resources Authority program. VRA is a state-run program. It's been around for a long time. It's very widely used by you and your neighbors. You've used it a couple times, both in 2014 and 2018, very successfully. And what VRA really does in this particular program is they're going to, quote unquote, pool your loans together, should you, the board, decide that you'd like to move forward, with loans from other local governments across the state, and they'll issue bonds on our behalf in basically about 60 days. And so we'll talk about what that means, what the two components look like, and importantly, I think given the overall backdrop of the pandemic and COVID-19 and different things happening in the financial markets, we'll show you a slide here. One of the reasons we like this idea right now is that interest rates are just at very, very low levels. We'll show you visually what that looks like in a couple pages, but they are, for all intents and purposes, for a local government like Surrey County, about as low as they've ever been historically, in terms of your ability to both refinance existing debt and bring the interest rate down, and also finance new projects in a responsible manner. So Ms. Rollins mentioned there is a deadline for this program, which is another reason we would come talk to you again this evening. September 25th is the deadline to basically have our local approvals, meaning your board approvals, done and to VRA. And so we want to let you see this again tonight, ask any questions, we can address those. If indeed the board is comfortable moving forward, we have everything put together for a meeting, as Ms. Rollins mentioned, on September 24th. So if I can flip the page here. Mentioned this in the prior page, but maybe this gives you a bit of a visual in terms of just how low, to use that term, very simple term, interest rates are just very, very low right now. We've seen it in the marketplace here for a couple months. We started the year with some volatility as the crisis kind of had its onset. But we've really seen through the summertime months is local governments like Surrey being able to borrow at rates that we've never really seen, in fairness. But that's an opportunity for you, again, to refinance and to think about new projects. So these particular graphs are showing you 10-year Treasury rates. You may follow these in the news. They're not necessarily directly the rate that we would borrow at, but they serve as a good bellwether for the overall interest rate environment. So the first of the two components of this financing, we call the refinancing opportunity. And again, we have outstanding as a county a couple different loans with VRA already. One of those loans is these 2014 C bonds, some bonds you issued as a county back in 2014. And if you see in the table in the middle of the page here, we have about $12 million left outstanding. That's the principal amount that's left outstanding on that loan. And the average interest rate on that loan, as it stands right now, is about a 4.68. You see that in the middle of the page. And so what we are thinking about, and given where rates are right now, is we've got an ability to take that 4.68 interest rate into somewhere in the 2% range. We'll talk about the time frame when the interest rate is actually set. But what we expect right now, as we sit here right now, is that 4.68 could become almost 2 percentage points lower than where it is right now. While we'd be doing that, we would not be extending the final maturity of the debt. So I think one of the important concepts when we're thinking about the responsibility piece of this is, all right, are we pushing things into the future? And the answer is no. We're going to keep the same final maturity and just simply try and take advantage of rates while they're low and reduce our interest rate in the process. So page 4, I think probably says in some bullet points what I probably just mentioned to you. I'll try not to repeat myself here, but so much. But in essence, what we're talking about is keep the same final maturity, bring the interest rate down. The interest rate through this Virginia Resources program, once they sell their bonds, which occurs in later October, the interest rate for your loan is set and fixed for the full term. So if you were to move forward, if the board were to make their approvals later in September, we'd have about a 30-day time period between when your approval would occur and when VRA would set their rate by virtue of selling their bonds. As we think about what the reduction in interest rate and the working of the cash flows can do for you, I think it's probably useful to think about that, not just in terms of interest rates, but in terms of dollars. If you recall the August presentation, we took a look at the county's overall capital program and said, all right, what is a responsible way to take care of those capital needs over a couple years, and ultimately what's the impact to the budget? And we measure that impact to the budget by an impact to the real estate tax rate. And so we'll talk about that in the next section. But what we think this refinancing could do, again, if rates hold, is to reduce the impact of funding that capital program by about the equivalent of 1 penny of the real estate tax rate. So if interest rates we can talk about and how favorable they are, maybe taking that concept more directly to how does it impact the county's budget. And what we think as we sit here right now is, to the taxpayer, this refinancing could shave about the equivalent of 1 penny on the real estate tax rate off of the impact of the capital program. So that's the refinancing component of what we're talking about. The second component, as we have here on page 5, is the new money component. And what we mean by the new money component is, you as a county, as you know, you've got an adopted capital program. Within that capital program, you've got a list of projects and priorities that you and staff have come up with. And so when we say new money, what we mean is funding those priorities and those capital projects that are really, in a lot of respects, projects that, again, us as outsiders kind of see as need to be done at some level. Those would include things like mobile communication system, new financial system, a variety of other things. We understand the roof project, administration facility is a priority. When we add all those things up for fiscal years 21 and 22, it's about $9 million. And so what we've got an ability to do while we're going through this refinancing process is to basically obtain funding through the same program, through VRA, for that roughly $9 million. And again, hopefully do that at a time when interest rates are about as favorable as they can be. What we're thinking about is that new loan for those new money projects would be repaid over about 15 years. The reason that 15 years is so is it ties to the useful life of the projects that are being financed. And so again, getting back to the concept of issuing debt and thinking about the capital program in a responsible manner, the idea here is we're going to borrow for these projects over a term that basically coincides with the usefulness of those projects. We're not going to go finance, say, a radio system over 30 years, because in all likelihood, as the technology changes, et cetera, that radio system is not going to last 30 years. So we pay for these things over a time period that coincides with the time period that the taxpayers will be benefiting from them. Bottom bullet point here, again, this VRA program, when they sell their bonds, the interest rates are fixed to the full term of the loan, just like on the refinancing side. So if indeed we were to combine these two pieces, we would have new money projects of about $9 million and a refinancing of about $12 million or thereabouts in terms of the total project. We'll say the way the program works and their security structure, we think another advantage in using VRA again is we're going to be able to combine these financings with some of your prior financings in such a way that we don't need to offer any additional collateral, any additional security to VRA over and above what you've already done for your existing 2014 and 2018 financing. So you get some economies of scale there in terms of the security and collateral for the loan. You kind of piggyback on what has already been done with the 2014 and the 2018 loans. So that gets to page 6. Our next steps, and then Mr. Chair and Vice Chair, I'll be happy to answer any questions that you or the board might have. But as you look at the schedule, we're talking this evening. The second action here, with your blessing as a board, I believe, and Ms. Rollins can correct me, we've got September 24th as the date for our I guess, special meeting to reconvene your formal approvals related to this financing. Because again, we've got that September 25th deadline to participate in this fall VRA pool. From that time period, VRA will sell their bonds. That's when the interest rate is actually locked in. That occurs on about October 28th. And then they close on November 18th. But really the critical date there, two critical dates, are September 24th for you as a Board of Supervisors, and then October 28th when VRA does indeed sell their bonds. Last page here, even thinking a couple steps beyond this actual VRA sale, and maybe as a continuation of our last discussion, I think another thing we'd recommend to you is you work with Ms. Rollins and with Ms. Swindell through the budget process towards the end of the calendar year. Think about some of those updated policies, updated planning, especially knowing that we are in a very unusual time period in terms of the economy with COVID and everything else going on. So that, Mr. Chair, Vice Chair, members of the board, that's all we have for you this evening, but I will stop and pause there, see what questions you have, or if Mrs. Rollins wants me to elaborate anything, I'd be happy to do so.
And thank you for the presentation. Board members?
So I just have one question for clarity. This is what you presented makes good fiscal sense, but I just wanted to know the new money and the refinance money. What is the total that we'll be looking to finance? If you could provide that for me.
Yes, sir. Yeah. So in terms of exact figures, we'll bring that back to you through next meeting. But the refinancing portion will be in and around 12 to 13 million. By the time we get those sort of exact calculations done for you at the next meeting, and then the new money will be about 9 million. So you add those two numbers up, and it's about 23 million in terms of the total. But I think importantly, the 12 to 13 million of the refinancing is not new to the county. It's already outstanding. All you'd really be doing is replacing a higher interest rate for a lower interest rate on the same loan already outstanding.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Other board members? Ms. Little and Mr. Calhoun?
Well, I'm just happy that, not that we're in this predicament of a COVID situation, but it's good to have interest rates that are at where they are today, especially at this time when we have several projects that we do need to finish and some that are new. So I like the presentation, and I feel like we need to move forward at our next meeting, which I think they said it'll be about September the 21st or somewhere about. So I welcome this opportunity.
Thank you, Ms. Logan. Mr. Calhoun?
I'm in agreement that, the lower the interest rate is better for the county. We save money. I just have a little bit of concern of incurring that $9 million additional debt of new money for capital projects in out years, I guess, and putting us at a $21 million debt.
Thank you, Mr. Calhoun. And for Davenport, our staff, Ms. Swindell, I guess, and I'm sure this will be presented at the next meeting, but you mentioned that the interest rates was going to save us about a penny of tax rate, which I think is around $280,000. Do you have any figures yet with the 15-year $9 million bond, what the payment per year would be?
We do, sir. If you give me 1 second here. And maybe the best way to think about that is, again, in terms of the budget and the tax rate, because when we rolled these all together in our initial projections, the thought was the impact of funding the capital program with the refinancing included was probably about 3 pennies on the real estate tax rate by the time we count that refinancing portion of it. So in terms of maybe boiling it down to the impact to the exact tax rate, that's probably the best way to think about it, is it's about 3 pennies on the real estate tax rate in order to take care of that. Now, in fairness, when we did those old projections, that was on a larger loan size. We've since whittled that down a little bit with staff, So we may find that that becomes a little bit more favorable as we update those numbers, but it's in and around that range, that 3 penny range, to take care of those needs.
Thank you. Anyone else? If not, thank you so much for your presentation, and I will turn it back over to Ms. Rollins.
Yes, sir, Mr. Jury. And again, thank you, Mr. Locks, for the presentation as well. And the only thing I want to add to that is a lot of what it is that we are trying to do in terms of the whole financial picture. You heard the presentation from the representative from the comp plan update. And as you can see, these things go hand in hand. So I just wanted to add that. Next on the agenda, Mr. Jury, is and board members, is Mr. David Harrison, who is going to give us a presentation on another COVID-19 business assistance grant. And I can ask Mr. David Harrison to come forth. And this is related to the CARES Act funding, round 1, that the county did receive. And this is certainly part of the agenda that I do enjoy in terms of being able to provide assistance to our local community. Mr. Harrison?
Yes, ma'am. Again, board members, good evening, and everyone virtually assembled. The purpose of this program is to assist Surrey County and Virginia small businesses who have been adversely impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. Funds have been made available by the Surrey County Board of Supervisors from the county's coronavirus relief funds under the Coronavirus Relief Aid Act, CARES Act. Administration of the program will be coordinated by representatives of the Economic Development Department within Surrey County government, as well as the Surrey County Economic Development Authority. The program provides a one-time emergency grant to eligible for-profit small businesses in Surrey County to assist with unplaced costs incurred and as a direct result of business interruptions and mandated business closures due to the coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic. Total amount, grant award amount would be $100,000 proposed, and we're asking for board approval to provide these funds to local businesses in Surrey County. Thank you.
Mr. Harrison and Ms. Rollins, do you need that in the form of a motion?
Yes, sir. We do need that in form of a motion in terms of appropriating $100,000 from the CARES Act to the Surrey County Economic Development Authority to administer that grant on the behalf of the board.
And so may we entertain that now? So board members, any questions?
No.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Ms. Little.
Oh, I was getting ready to say a motion to approve those funds for the businesses. I know, and I think that there's a deadline that we have to spend this money, and I'm sure the businesses can use it. I did or would like to have a copy given to the board, and we may already have it, of the different businesses and what they would receive. But I'm ready to make a motion to appropriate that $100,000 from the CARES Act.
Mr. Drury, this is Tim.
Thank you.
I have 2 questions. I guess I was amiss at getting in earlier, and I apologize. So I know that we had given money out previously at a smaller grant fund. Would those companies, small companies, also be entitled to reapply for additional grants, or would they be excluded or somehow recalculated based on the new funding of the $100,000?
Mr. Harrison?
I'm sorry, Mr. Harrison, you want to highlight those qualifications that's been proposed in the application for those funds? Are you able to give those highlights? Mr. Harrison? If not,
Hello, can you hear me? I'm sorry, can you hear me?
okay, we can hear
Okay.
you.
Yeah, I was
Okay.
talking. I don't know what happened, but yeah, I will highlight the eligibility for the grant. The businesses must be a Surrey County small business with 25 employees or less, and this includes businesses with contracted employees. Businesses must have been established and operational within Surrey County for at least 6 months. Businesses and business owners must possess a Surrey County business license. Business owners must indicate on the application how their business has been adversely impacted by the COVID-19 crisis. So to answer your question, Mr. Calhoun, I don't think we're excluding anyone. We're just holding them to the eligibility for the grant or the criteria for application and consideration. But we're not excluding anyone who has already received funds from other grants according to these standards.
Okay, and then I have
Thank you, Mr. Harrison.
I have one other question, Mr. Jordan. I apologize again.
No
I
problem.
know that there were a couple of applications that were received late with the first grant authorization. Do those folks need to reapply, Mr. Harrison, or are their applications still on file for the next this new $100,000 grant?
Okay, so the process, the previous grant was a grant, as you know, that came from county funds and SPAL, a match from SPAL. So this is a completely different application. The EDA received applications previously. As you know, staff hadn't re-entered the workplace at that time. But since then we have, so in this application, we're proposing that staff would mail hard copies to all businesses. And we do have a list of those that have been provided by our Commissioner of the Revenue and from each town in the county. And we will be mailing hard copies of the application to those businesses. And we will receive the applications, track them, and hand them over to the EDA. So we're going for a smoother process and ensuring that everyone gets the applications in a timely fashion. Persons who did apply or had their applications in late from the last grant award can apply to this as well and get their applications, whether it be hard copy or email, however they need to get them. But they're certainly welcome to apply. Persons who were excluded or did not have their applications in on time for the last grant, COVID-19 grant opportunity.
Mr. Harrison, just to confirm, so if an application was received late in the previous round, they have to reapply then. That application is not maintained on file and to be added to this new grant. I just wanted to make that confirmation.
These are two separate grants and two separate awards and two separate sources, so we can't commingle the two. Yes, sir.
Okay.
They would still have to apply, but yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any more questions or discussion? If not, we have a main motion on the floor by Ms. Little. Do we have a second?
Robert Elliott.
Second it, Mr. Gray.
I think Mr. Elliott was in. So it's
second the motion.
Moved in second. Can we, Ms. Chapman, can we have a roll call?
Yes, sir. Roll call, Mr. Elliott.
Yes.
Mr. Drury.
Yes.
Ms. Little.
Yes.
Mr. Calhoun.
Yes.
Motion approved. Mr. Harrison, were you going to talk about the OBC Healthcare Foundation grant?
Yes, sir, I can. Pleased to announce that Economic Development has received a grant and award in the amount of $45,000 for COVID relief from the OBC Healthcare Foundation. And I'll give a brief overview. Due to the global health crisis, the OBC Healthcare Foundation wanted to support the needs of the local community through a COVID-19 response fund up to $750,000 for cities and counties in its service area. And we made application, Economic Development County Administration, and we were awarded $45,000 of those $750,000 allocated for cities and counties in the OBC Healthcare Foundation service area. And I am requesting the board to approve the grant and give us authorization to drop an MOU between the board as well as the EDA for the disbursement of those funds to small businesses for COVID-19 impact.
Thank you, Mr. Harrison. Board members, any questions or discussion?
Mr. Harrison, in what's I'm looking at here, it says that is for business assistance also.
Yes,
the grant,
ma'am.
the OBC
Yes, ma'am.
healthcare.
Yes, ma'am. Associated with the impact of COVID-19.
Right.
Yes, ma'am.
The reason I was asking, there are no other projects that we can use those funds for. They have to go to a business.
They would have to go to any small. It's very similar to the previous COVID-19 award grants that we just awarded, and the ones that the one that we're just awarding for CARE. So it's a similar process. We have to, transfer the funds to the EDA, $45,000 to the EDA, and the EDA will receive applications, review, and make awards. Same process, and will be to small businesses who hold a valid business license in the county. Same criteria, similar criteria.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
And Mr.
Mr.
Harrison,
Harrison,
I'm sorry, Mr.
Go ahead,
Drury.
Tim. Go ahead, Mr. Jones.
Thank you. Just to confirm, they would have to send a second application in for the $45,000 grant to potentially receive any funds.
Yes, sir. These are all separate grants, and
Okay.
so they have separate criteria, application processes. OBC requires us to advertise in a certain way, and they have their own standards. So yes, sir, they would have to submit a separate application, and we're running that again through workforce development. We'll do mailings and receive and track and transfer to the EDA for a smooth process. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Yes, Vice Chairman Jury, board members. Mr. Harrison, also, if I may add, with this OBC Healthcare Foundation grant, this one may be more specific, if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Harrison, as pertaining to more stringent criteria, and that it has to be used for certain things like personal protective equipment and things of that nature. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am, that is correct.
And thank you. Thanks for the clarification. Board members, any more questions? If not, could I have a motion?
A motion to approve the OBC grant of $45,000, Mr. Drury.
Yes, and I believe it needs to be appropriated, Mr. Harrison.
Yes, sir.
And appropriated, Mr. Drury.
Thank you, Mr. Calhoun. Do I have a second?
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. Roll call vote, Mr. Chapman?
Yes, sir. Roll call. Mr. Elliott?
Yes.
Mr. Drury?
Yes.
Ms. Little?
Yes.
Mr. Calhoun?
Yes.
And thanks. Motion approved, and we'll move on. Ms. Rollins, do you want to introduce our next speaker?
Absolutely. We have before us this evening Dr. Sabrina Sims, Division Superintendent. She is with us tonight to provide an update to the board on the fall school planning. Dr. Sims, good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Mr. Chairman and Vice Chairman of the board, to the Board of Supervisors members, Mrs. Melissa Rollins, and all assembled. Once again, good evening. First of all, I want to thank you for giving me this opportunity to update you on the start of the 2020-2021 school year. I also want to thank you for the support since my tenure in the position of Superintendent of Surrey County Public Schools. I look forward to the relationship of the two boards as we do the work of the schools as well as the work of the community. As always, when given the opportunity, I take the time to enjoy bragging about Surrey County Public Schools. So I'm just going to spend just a few moments doing just that, and that is bragging. Just this past month, Surrey County High School was recognized by the State Board of Education as the recipient of the board's highest Achievement Exemplar Award. Only 71 schools across the Commonwealth of Virginia has earned this award. So needless to say, we are extremely proud of Surrey County High Schools, the students, the staff, and their accomplishments. Surrey Elementary School was recognized last year for this same award. Luther Porter Jackson Middle School. Luther Porter Jackson Middle School, in partnership with the Surrey County Department of Youth and Family Resources, as well as the Surrey County's Recreation Department, once again is the recipient of a 21st Century Community Learning Center grant. This grant totals close to $185,000, and we will be expending those funds over this next year. As we look forward to serving the community as a part of this collaborative effort, we also want to disclose some additional grants that we have received in the school division. Surrey County Public Schools has received the Odyssey Healthcare Foundation grant, and it was awarded in the amount of $83,353 for the sole purpose of COVID-19 response relief. We've also been recently awarded an S-Power Technology Support Grant in the amount of $13,500. And as I continue my brag session, as you are aware, all of our schools are fully accredited for the 2019-2020 school year. And as in the past, academically, our schools have been strong. But I also want to brag a little bit about not just the academic component, but also extracurricular activities that our students participate in. The girls varsity basketball team earned a co-state championship award for a successful season under the tutelage of Coach Mays Toomer, who recently passed away. Certainly, our thoughts and our prayers are with his family at this time, and our thoughts and prayers are with the students that he touched in his many years of serving us here in Surrey County Public Schools. And if you are not aware, Coach Mays Toomer led the girls basketball team to the 2000 state championship, and he came back to us this past year to lead us to a co-championship. And although I'm bragging, I'd like to think that if we had that opportunity to actually play that game in Richmond, we would not be co-champions, but sole champions in Surrey County. Also, on August the 24th, as always, we welcome back new staff members with our convocation event that was held semi-virtually this year. And by semi-virtually, the opening speech and presentations were virtual, and our luncheon consisted of box lunches that were ordered from Chick-fil-A. And I can say we certainly miss the presence of our Board of Supervisors members, as well as other community members who have joined us in the past for our convocation event. Hopefully, we will resume our in-person festivities in 2021. So speaking of COVID-19, our schools have been officially closed by order of the Governor of Virginia since March 13th, 2020. With that being said, our students this past year missed over 25% of in-person instruction because of this closure. So as a follow-up to this closure, on August the 3rd, our school board announced that because of worsening COVID-19 conditions, we would start the school year virtually for at least the first 9 weeks of school. And that converts to the first quarter of school. And if we are starting virtually, what will that look like in the schools? So virtual instruction for us will be both live as well as recorded sessions for our students. Virtual Virginia will be the curriculum that we will use, and that curriculum is fully aligned to the standards of learning, but it allows us to transition back and forth between virtual attendance or, if necessary, in-person attendance for our students. In making this decision to go virtual, Surrey County Public Schools surveyed family members to determine just what their level of connectivity to the internet is. So 70% of our family members indicated that they did have internet in their homes. However, we did a sub-part of that question, and we wanted to know if their internet was stable. So of the 70% who indicated that they had internet, another 40% of that 70 said that their internet was not stable or was not reliable. And that's critical for us here in Surrey County. Realizing this was going to cause us some problems with connectivity to instruction, we worked to alleviate this problem. So working hand in hand with Surrey County Public Schools partnered with the county to purchase 10 Wi-Fi stations that will be positioned around the county at participating churches. In addition to those 10 Wi-Fi stations that will be positioned in churches, the school division, with the assistance of the county, purchased a limited number of portable hotspots. Those portable hotspots are called Kajits. And it's very similar to the hotspots that you and I might have on our cell phones, except for the fact that multiple devices can sign into it. So with one simple Kajit going into a home, up to 5 devices can be signed into that Kajit. In addition to the hotspots that we have already purchased, we are attempting to purchase additional hotspots. The problem that we're having is almost every school division in the United States is also attempting to purchase additional hotspots. But as soon as they are available, we will have them issued to students in Surrey County. And we are happy to state that all Surrey County Public School students will have access to a personal computing device, and that's either a Chromebook or an iPad. So for our students in grades 2 through 12, those students will have Chromebooks. For our pre-K through first grade students, they will have iPads. And these are not devices that we have to go out and purchase this year. And I'll say over and over, we're thankful for the partnership that we have had with the county for many years. The county has provided us with sufficient funds to have made sure that every one of our students had access to a device, and that was prior to COVID-19. So that puts Surrey County Public Schools in a pretty good position competitively to deal with all of the ins and outs of what COVID-19 will do to us as a school division. So with that being said, what do we need in the school division at this time? And I'd like to say it's not just what we need in the school division, but maybe what do we need in the school division in conjunction with the county. As we have posted several notices on Facebook, Twitter, and on our website, some of the feedback that we're receiving from families is that they need childcare. We have families who will need to return to work once schools reopen on Tuesday. and they are looking for stable and reliable childcare where their students can be monitored or their children can be monitored as they are completing their work and their assignments. In addition to childcare, a second need that has presented itself to the school division, and it certainly was not a need at the time when we constructed our budget, but we are in need of an additional nurse. There are quite a few health-related screenings that must be done as we prepare daily to bring students back into the schools. And those screenings include everything from temperature checks to monitoring isolation rooms, to even communicating with parents and the health department about issues that are associated with COVID-19. With our 3 schools, we currently have 2 registered nurses on our staff. And my concern is that third school that does not have a nurse will not have the necessary supervision for the medical components that are associated with COVID-19. So in conclusion, with that being said, on behalf of the faculty, staff, and student body of Surrey County Public Schools, I really appreciate your time and consideration this evening, and I thank you for your attention. Are there any questions for me at this time?
Fellow board members?
Dr.
Go ahead, Ms. Little.
Judy Little, how will the school system take care of those children that would need to be kept at home while the parents are at work?
I am hoping that this is where the county can step up and assist us with developing a child care center. Once our schools closed for, as a result of COVID-19, there have been limits and restrictions on who can enter and who can exit the school buildings. So whatever arrangement is made would have to be made outside of the 3 school buildings.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have any space at any of the 3 facilities that can be accomplished at?
Well, of course, with the size of our buildings, we have the space for over 750 plus students. So space is not the issue. The issue is the requirement for school divisions and school buildings to be closed, unless there is a variance that is issued. With Surrey County, I'm hoping that the county and the school division can step forward and come forth with a location in the county where we can serve the purposes and still maintain those requirements under the directive for school divisions.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Vice Chairman Jury, may I respond to Dr. Sims as it pertains to the county's assistance? So Dr. Sims and I, yes, thank you, sir. Dr. Sims and I have been communicating over the last week as it pertains to the inquiry regarding having some type of facility in the county for childcare. Obviously, we do want to be able to assist students in the community and even the employees here at the government center and other offices, as they do have kids who are of school age and need to have that childcare if they elect to come back to work. So with that stated, we are trying to put the ball in motion to have the Surrey County Parks and Recreation Facility to serve as such daycare facility. I shouldn't say daycare, but to serve as a learning center during the day on Monday through Thursday. Obviously, there's a lot we have to do to get it straight, but in talking with Mr. Jones, we have already indicated that based on the space needs there, that we can safely have about 36 maximum students there based on the 6 feet social distancing and the necessary petitions that need to go up to make sure that the students do remain safe in that environment. Of course, in addition to some staff to be able to have the proper supervision and of course the other things that will be needed to make sure that they do have a safe learning environment, as well as looking at the technology component of it to make sure that they are able to access Wi-Fi and things of that nature, and working with Mr. Brown to make sure that they are able to access and do their homework while they are there. So this is just the initial information that I can share with you tonight. Obviously, we do have some more kinks to work out. We have polled our workers here at the Government Center to try to get a good number of that of employees with students who may be able to take advantage of that facility as well. So I did appreciate having that dialogue with Dr. Sims, and we are more than willing to assist both the school system and the community and our employees in that regard. And speaking with Mr. Jones and his staff, they are very confident that this is something that they can certainly be assistance to the community.
Thank you, Ms. Rollins. Any more questions or comments from board members?
Mr. Drury, Tim Calhoun, do we have, Dr. Sims, is there an estimated number of children that need this type of care, or, you know, to go into a separate building?
At this time, we have not polled all the families. The surveys that we sent out were actually sent out back in June and early July for the data that we received. And honestly, in June and early July, the assumption was that certainly by the time September rolled around, COVID-19 would have calmed down and we would be able to open the schools back in person. And certainly since then, the numbers, not just in Surry County, but in the counties surrounding Surry, has increased significantly. And with that increase, of course, that led to our decision to start the school year virtually for the first 9 weeks.
And just additional questions, please. The child care, if at the Parks and Recreation facility, would we be using existing teachers or teacher assistants to help with that, or would that require outside additional support to run that child care?
And Ms. Rollins, I'll answer that question if you do not mind.
No, not at all.
Surry County Public Schools will be providing 100% of the teacher support, teacher assistant support for the students, regardless of what their physical location is. Our curriculum is virtual Virginia, but our employees, our teachers, will still be teaching that curriculum to the students. And it'll certainly be done in multiple modes. We are starting virtually, so we will start teaching that curriculum virtually. And we're hoping that as time passes, we will be able to transition students back into school so that they're having that face-to-face contact with their teachers. So with all of this, it doesn't matter if the students are at home or at a facility somewhere in Surry County. The instruction will be provided by the teaching staff and the teacher assistants that are employed by Surry County Public Schools.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Dr. Sims, Mike Drury.
Yes, sir.
Just more curiosity than anything is the not allowing anyone into the school systems. Where is that regulation coming from? The state?
That regulation is a part of about an 80-page document that limits how school divisions can operate. And with that, we have a liability company called VACORT that helps us with this process. So as they're helping us with the process to say what the school division can and cannot do, if we have opted to open virtually, limited access to those buildings must be maintained. I will say with that, it doesn't limit us from providing necessary supplies. So for example, if the rec center was actually used to support students and families in Surrey County, the school division, as we have already been doing this week, we can provide, of course, the Chromebooks, the iPads, the other items, even if the rec center needed desks or things of that nature, we can provide that. However, what we would do within the building has to be strictly controlled. And I guess to make it maybe a little bit more understandable, if we were allowing students to come back into the building, then we might as well hold school within the buildings. Our goal is to keep down the spread of COVID-19 within the buildings as a protection to not just the students, but also the staff members and others, such as parents who do have to have access to those buildings occasionally.
Thank you. Just a comment there. I don't know what the shape of the buildings are at the gardens on the Rolf, but lots of schoolroom there. So
I'm sorry, Mr. Drury,
anyway.
say that again.
The old academy gardens on the Rolf outside of Dendron. I would think would be available to assist with childcare if needed.
Thank you.
Dr. Sims, where can students find out where the Wi-Fi locations will be located?
We have posted that information already on Surrey County Public Schools website. It's also was shared with the community via Facebook and Twitter. And as students are picking up their devices and books, we've also shared it with families via that method. And today as of 7 o'clock when we shut down open house, close to 600 students of our 720 plus had already picked up their materials. So when they picked up their materials, they also received notification of where those Wi-Fi stations are. And you should also note that the 3 schools in Surrey County, we have opened up our access points so that that Wi-Fi is not just within the buildings, it's also within the parking lots. So that too is a source of Wi-Fi for the students and for the community of Surrey.
And thank you. And Dr. Sims, this is not your job description, but the reason I'm asking that question is I'm already, as a board member, getting questions from college students in my district of where can they access Wi-Fi. And I know that's an issue because we got many college students as well. Again, I know that's not in your job description, but that's the reason I was asking it.
And with that, right now there is actually a passcode that has been issued to Surrey County Public Schools students and families. It's not open Wi-Fi, very similar to what you'd have if you went to, let's say, Panera. It is limited and it is also filtered. We're using the same filters on the Wi-Fi that we would use if those students were actually physically in the building. They can't go just to any site that's out there, and that's for their protection as well. So there are filters very similar to the filters that we use in the school division.
Thank you. Ms. Rollins, any consideration giving for college students that are asking this question?
Mr. Jury, if I can hold off on that question and let Mr. DeLon Brown do that in his presentation on item number 5, that we may have an answer to that question.
That would be, and I'd forgotten about that, but thank you. And thank you,
Okay.
Dr. Sims. Any more questions for Dr. Sims? Dr. Sims, thank you so much. And I know the board is supportive of your efforts, and especially during these challenging times. And thanks again.
Thank you, Mr. Drury.
And Ms. Rollins, if you'd like to introduce the next topic.
I do, sir. But before we start with the COVID-19 update, if I can ask, if you don't mind, to have Mr. Rossi Carroll come on first. He's been on for 2 hours. I apologize for not having our guest go first. He should have been before. So, Mr. Carroll, thank you if you're still on to do the VDOT update, sir. If that's okay with you, Mr. Drury, to make the change.
It is, and I'll just remind all the speakers from now on that one of our board members is not filling up the stuff tonight and told me to please make this a quick meeting, and it's 9 o'clock. So if we could be efficient for the rest of the meeting, it would be wonderful.
Okay. Thank you.
Good evening, Chairman Elliott, Vice Chair Drury, other distinguished members of the board. This is Rossi here from VDOT to provide the quarterly transportation update. Speaking of COVID update, we are currently, first of all, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. We are in the midst of teleworking. Most of our office staff, 13 out of the 16 total office staff that we have in the Williamsburg residency are teleworking 5 days a week. Our area headquarters, maintenance and operations staff, they are still going to the job sites and meeting at the area headquarters in each county. I do have a couple personnel updates to give. Keith Sneed, who was the former superintendent there in Surrey, he has been promoted to the Williamsburg Residency Contract Manager. We have hired or Charles Kennedy, who was a supervisor over in Croker. He has been promoted as the maintenance superintendent there at Surrey area headquarters. And we've hired a new maintenance supervisor there at the area headquarters, and his name is Michael Bradshaw. And his is a promotion as well, but he came to us from the Franklin residency. With that, I'll get into maintenance accomplishments and county request. It's been, with COVID and all, it's been about 6 months since I gave the quarterly update. So these numbers are going to reflect approximately 6 months, March 1st to August 30th. We received 579 maintenance work orders. Of those, we've completed 500, which is an 86% completion rate. Most of our remaining open work orders are split between drainage work orders and let's just say miscellaneous. They could be a lot of things between vegetation, signs, shoulders, washes, those type of things. I do want to promote our residency direct line because it's open if you need something. I prefer that you call in, issue a work order. That way our superintendents or our managers can take a look at it and get back with you, and you don't have to have so much face-to-face contact. I'll throw that out there again. The residency office line here is 757-253-5138. And we have a VDOT customer service center that is available 24 hours a day at 1-800-4-ROADS. And that's 4-ROADS is 367-7623. A few accomplishments that I'd like to highlight over that time. We've cleaned pipes and ditches on Route 40 from Route 611 to Route 10 West. We also repaired a wet pavement or a slick pavement area on 615 and Carsley Road next close to Dendron. We have broke beaver dams and coordinated with the USDA contract on Route 602 and 628, try to improve the high water. We did unpaved shoulder machining and grading for 6 shoulder miles, prune and brush removal for 10 shoulder miles, and we did machine patching with 7 tons of asphalt. Bridge abutment repair on Goodrich Fork Road, and also VDOT mowing of primary and select secondary routes we started this week. The plant mix full depth reclamation on Route 602 Laurel Springs Road between 608 Oak Hill Road and 1.7 miles east of Laurel Drive has been completed. Current projects we have is the plant mix schedule, and that is a section of Route 10 East between Chip Oaks Farm Road to west of Bacon's Castle Trail. And that project will start September 8th. So we have a restriction of half a day on Tuesday because of the holiday, and they will start afternoon on the just looking at the 2-week look ahead. They'll start milling this section, and then they'll be milling and paving the section at the same time, then come back with temporary striping and then permanent striping. They will install the shoulder stone and rumble strips, and the last item is the snow plowable markers, the reflectors. That is scheduled, and this is weather dependent, equipment dependent, everything else, but that is scheduled to be completed, all of those activities, by 9/17. The work will be done under flagging operations, so there will be one lane of travel in each one lane of travel during the construction, and it'll be opened up to 2 lanes of travel when they're not working. Another upcoming project is Smart Scale project there at the intersection of Trail East and Route 617. And that's to realign the intersection of Route 10 East and at Bacon's Castle Trail, White Marsh Road. Install a left turn lane for eastbound traffic on 10, install a left turn lane for westbound traffic on 10, and install a right turn lane at Bacon's Castle Trail. There will be slight realignment of Route 10 to the west of the current location, and there are some significant cultural resources in the area which must be handled carefully. Preliminary engineering for this project started August of 2019, and right-of-way phase will start in 2021 with construction start date in 2023. We also have the Smart Scale 20 project, which is the Route 31 shoulder widening, bicycle pedestrian accommodations of 5-foot shoulder widening from the town of Surrey to Pleasant Point Road. Preliminary engineering started in September of 2019. The right-of-way phase is scheduled to start in 2022 with construction scheduled to start in 2023. I'll get into some emergency response. We've had Tropical Storm Isis, and we also, which impacted Surrey County more than that, responded to about a 12-inch rain event August 15th and 16th. And we made emergency repairs to open the following roads. We've opened Beaver Dam Road, Oak Hill Road, Moonlight Road, Brownsview Road, and Spring Grove Road, 646. So most of these areas, Brownsview Road, we had to totally replace the double line of cross drains there, 36, and then put the road back. Moonlight Road at that first swamp or creek, we had severe flooding, which moved the parapet wall. We had to repair that, and Oak Hill Road, we had to do some wash, and then Beaver Dam Road was also a wash over a pipe. Those are all open at this time. The only thing left to do at these locations are, and we'll get to that in the next, I don't know, 4 or 5 weeks, is to repave the areas. They are currently crush and run. We have loose gravel signs, but I want to make sure everything is compacted well and settled before we go in and do our final paving at these locations. There are currently locations that we're doing with emergency contract repair. The first and foremost is the Colonial Trail East. That emergency repair is underway. That we have that section of 10 East shut down to traffic at this time. Planned completion for that is by noon tomorrow. They will be doing the final paving in the morning. Once that is complete, they'll start removing the detour, and Route 10 West will be open to traffic.
Mr. Carroll? Mr. Carroll,
Yes.
I asked, it's wonderful news, but I did ask to be brief, and if you could wrap up.
Okay. We have 4 more places on Route 10 that we are doing emergency repairs. Highgate Road will be starting in mid-September, and Mount Ray Road, we're working on a contract now for that. However, we opened 1 lane of traffic. Estimated damage for repairs is about $800,000 to $900,000 for the county. We have 2 locations on Route 10 that will be paved next year, and we have 5 locations that will use latex on Route 10, Route 40, and Route 31. They are included in your report, and if you have any questions, I'd be glad to take them at this time.
Thank you so much. Board members, any questions?
Mr. Carl, Judy here. There are some complaints, but what I will do is give a call in. I will not, proceed to discuss them tonight.
Sounds good.
Thank you, Ms. Little. Any other board members? Mr. Carroll, thank you so much.
Have a good evening.
Thank you. I think next up is COVID-19 update. Ray Phelps.
Yes, sir. How you doing, sir?
Doing fine.
Good. Good. Good evening, Chairman, Vice Chair, board members, Ms. Rollins, citizens, Surrey County. I provided an update in the board packet on the update was for August 28th. But since August 28th, the positive numbers were 62. And just those few days, we're now at 85 with 3 deaths. So the virus is spreading in Surrey County. What we are finding is that a lot of it is family members. If one member of a household had the virus a week ago, we're now, we're looking at 2 or 3 members in the household. So that's where a lot of that is spreading. So just to give you a quick overview, roughly 739 citizens in Surrey County fall under the vulnerable population, according to the VDH, which is about 12% of our population. On the ways that we're responding, currently responding to the coronavirus in Surrey County is on September 5th, which is this Saturday from 9 to 10:30, we'll be partnering with the Crater Health District and offering COVID-19 testing at Pools Mobile Home Park. Pools Mobile Home Park was assessed as one of our 3 vulnerable areas in Surrey County. And this past week, I teamed up with the Virginia Department of Emergency Management, and we got involved in what's called a health equity pilot program. I distributed roughly 60 flyers, bottles of hand sanitizer and masks to all the residents in Pools Mobile Home Park, as well as there's a small mobile home park off of Colonial Trail East there by Bacon's Castle Peanuts. On October 3rd, we'll be offering testing once again in Surrey County. The site is to be determined, but I'm looking heavily at the Dendron area, maybe at the Dendron Rec Center. I'm offering that testing, but that'll be that information will be provided at a later date. The Crater Health team, I'll be representing Surrey County on the Crater COVID-19 planning team starting in September, in which what we're doing is starting to develop more strategies on how to combat the spread, as well as tactics for the implementation of vaccinations once they do develop one. Business toolkits were handed out to approximately 20 businesses in Surrey County. These toolkits included hand sanitizers, touchless thermometers, masks, cleaning supplies, and coronavirus literature. Some up and coming events. CHD, I'm sorry, Crater Health District is creating a team of 5 individuals to conduct a rapid mobile testing throughout the district. Once this team is put in place, we'll have testing in Surrey County every 2 weeks. And what we're going to do is rotate that around to different towns and different areas like that. And that'll be determined also at a later date. we're currently looking at long-term plans for testing during the colder months. One of the options is the new facility that we've built. Would be work out well for a nice drive-through site through one of the bays. And we've also have teamed up with Virginia Department of Emergency Management, and will be supplying the school system with PPE for all their staff now that they're back to school. So that's a real brief synopsis of where we're at.
Thank you so much, Mr. Phelps. Any questions from board members? Hearing none, and thank you again, Mr. Phelps, for your efforts.
You're welcome.
We'll move on to information technology, Mr. Bryan.
Good evening, Chairman and Vice Chair and fellow board members. I will be very brief as the time is really late. The connectivity, the community connectivity initiative that we have in place, we're here with the Department of Information Technology. We're in the process of designing and engineering a solution that will provide a community hotspot at 3 of our locations on site here within our government infrastructure. This way, we're trying to have another resource for our broadband crisis. Since COVID has come, broadband, the need for broadband and access is something that a lot of our localities have not had to deal with, but there are some like Surrey that have that we've had that issue within the community. So as Dr. Sims said earlier, there with K-12 environments, there are definitely security filtering parameters that need to be set in order to be within compliance and to help serve that community as well. But then there is the other side of the population here with the higher ed community and also just the constituents of the county. So we're engineering a solution that will be put in place that we can allow what's called a community hotspot. This way we'll have access at our locations. We're thinking about the main government center as one, our new emergency services building as another site as well. With that, and in hopes of providing a solution that provides high availability, stability, a place that's safe for usage, safe for parking and things like that. So there are a lot of other departments that are going to that are really important to this being a success. So there's nothing worse than putting a resource out and it doesn't have great availability, and it's almost like the scenario of putting a quarter in the bubblegum machine and turning it and nothing comes out. So we definitely want to put something in place that's going to be a great resource for the community. This is something that can definitely benefit a lot of the walking population that we have. I worked some early mornings for the last few weeks I've been here. I've seen a lot of walkers are in and around the government center, and so there's another way to get out and get on and maybe stream music and cut back on some data that we're using. So definitely this is in the phase one. We're in our first phase of this, and hopefully this will extend also to be a part of our public safety network. So we're looking to put not just a temporary solution in place, but something that will be here, that will be part of the community for years and decades to come. So that's the short of it. Definitely, if there are any questions at this time, we can definitely entertain that.
Thank you, Mr. Bryan. Board members?
Just want to say thank you, Mr. Brown.
Oh, no problem. Our pleasure.
Mr. Bryan, this is Mike Drury. When those college students ask me, where would be a connection for them? I don't want them bugging you all the time, but how should they try to understand an update?
I'll tell you right now in the phase that we're in, as far as ours, we're working to get ours, but there are some that Prince George Electric Co-op has already put in place. I think with the Rocky Heart facility so those will definitely be good places where they can have a reliable connection, and they should not fall under any parameters. And once again, those are some of the intricacies that we're trying to identify to make sure that, like I said, what we put in place is going to be something that they can and really benefit from not just something that will, get them through, but we want to have something that's going to be in place for them as a great resource.
And they can find out these locations, I believe, on our website, on the
website. Yes, sir. And definitely, if after this weekend, we can definitely make sure that we put a even a newer link on the front page, so that way they can go there. Any questions?
Thank you so much. Board members, any questions for Mr. Bryan? Hearing none, Mr. Bryan, thank you so much. Thank you for your efforts during this COVID times. You've been an important link, and I know Ms. Rollins has said that many times to me, and really appreciate your efforts and the effort to bring me online tonight as well. And
no problem.
So you be safe, and as the medical people say, and don't touch your face, okay?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you. Have a good evening.
All right. Take care. All right. Ms. Rollins, have you got one more speaker?
I do. Ms. LaSonia White, if you can come on very briefly, we do again like to share with the community some of the things that we are doing for the CARES Act, and she's going to give a very brief report tonight. Thank you, Ms. White.
Well, thank you all for having me. Greetings, Vice Chair Drury, Mr. Elliott, and other members of the board. I just wanted to share an opportunity that you provided for our citizens, made possible by the COVID CARES Act funding. The farmers market was able to offer vegetable boxes to our residents. We are a healthy eating and active living community, so we wanted to also include health information as well as recipes in the boxes. Some of the items that we were able to have in the boxes was apples, pears, peppers, squash, tomatoes, cucumbers, watermelon, cantaloupe, and also elephant garlic. Now, originally, we wanted to give away 100 boxes, but on day one, we had 91 people to call, and the phones were continuing to ring. So we were able to offer 50 additional boxes that day, and then we had 16 drive-up participants that we were able to service that day. So some of the volunteers I'd like to thank to help put together everything and help pass out the boxes was our County Administrator, Mrs. Rollins, and board members, Ms. Judy Little and Mr. Timothy Calhoun. We also had Mr. Stanley Jones as well as Ms. Linda Golston encouraging everyone to go ahead and fill out their census reports. So I just wanted to share that information with our residents. Received this very well. We've received so much appreciation, notes and letters, thank you notes, and they were very, very accepting of this opportunity. So thank you for allowing us to share this activity today.
Board members, any comments? If not, Ms. White, thank you so much. And I saw pictures from the event, and thank you so much for putting that forth. And thanks again.
You're welcome.
Ms. Rollins, I think I turn it over to you for your report.
Absolutely. And very brief tonight, my report will focus on employee spotlights this evening for the sake of time. The first one, Story County Emergency Communications. We are once again bittersweet to announce that Mr. Justin Smith, who is currently our Emergency Communications Officer, is our Emergency Communications Manager. We want to take a few minutes to wish him farewell and best of luck on his new journey as the new E911 Director for Bedford County, Virginia. So he is leaving little old Sarah County and is going to be in charge of a community that has over 100,000 residents. He and his family will be relocating. During his tenure with the county, Jetson has been instrumental in the development and training of Surrey County's communication operations. He has notable accomplishments to include an award of a $46,000 grant from the Virginia Office of Emergency Management underneath the Rescue Squad Assistance Fund. Jetson, again, has been instrumental in developing the policies and procedures that had helped advance our emergency communication officers forward. Most recently, his diligent efforts in spearheading with other team leads the successful transition of the dispatchers to the new Emergency Operations Center. And if you can imagine, that has been a task of all tasks in terms of all the intricate details, vendors, equipment, working with Mr. Brown, information technology, and working, of course, with Mr. Phelps and the team from Dominion. It has been a unbelievable task that he had, along with those individuals, have worked on in the past 2 weeks. So we do thank him for his efforts in that, as well as the others. And not one time do I believe there was any interruption of the county's emergency 911 operations. So kudos to Mr. Justin Smith and all the staff members who worked in that effort. Absolutely wonderful to hear that. Again, we are very sorry to lose him, but it sounds like he's been presented with another excellent in Bedford County. The next one, congratulations to the following employees for their new roles. We understand that human capital and resources is one of the county's greatest assets, and we are truly grateful for those employees that exhibit outstanding leadership, professionalism, dedication, willingness, board members and others to be stretched above and beyond in their team building spirit that is needed to function in the complexities of local government. So we do want to give a virtual appreciation and applause to Mr. DeLon Brown, who is now the Director of Information Technology. We do know that we had one vacancy when Miss Lisa Bosey left. So Miss Marie Vargo is now our Chief Animal Control Officer, and Miss Emily Matthews, the Animal Control, is now the Animal Control Officer. So congratulations to those employees. And again, kudos for the successful work that has happened this week at our new Emergency Operations Center. You do have in your board packet the broadband update from Prince George Electric Co-op. They are making progress, and they have connected 100 more homes than they did in the previous month. You do have information reports that are included in your board packet. I would not go over those this evening. I can tell you that, like Dr. Sims stated, it has been 7 months since we have been operating in this COVID-19 environment. And I cannot tell you, board members and others, of the numerous challenges that have been associated with not just the pandemic, with other things that come up in our county. But again, I just want to thank everyone for support, and for you board members and all that you support, and for the staff, again, for all their efforts. And we are getting all in this together. Mr. Ray Phelps reported we are 85 cases. And I do want to, again, strongly encourage all to please mask up. There are campaigns that's going with the Creative Health District. You will be seeing more information regarding that. We contributed over $4,000 in their marketing efforts, so stay tuned for a campaign from the Creative Health District in terms of making sure that our community stays vigilant regarding this COVID-19, because we cannot be complacent. That is my report for this evening, board members, and to all, thank you again for the meeting this evening.
Thank you, Ms. Rollins. Board members, any parting comments? Hearing none. Ms. Rollins, I believe you wanted this an adjournment with a motion to continue the meeting to September 24th at 7 o'clock p.m.
That is correct,
correct?
unless you want to do 6, sir, but 7 o'clock, yes.
Board members, 6 or 7?
7.
7 o'clock.
Okay. Got it. So could I have a motion to adjourn until September 24th at 7 o'clock p.m.?
So moved.
So moved, Mr. Joy.
Second.
We got a motion and a second, and all those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned, and thanks so much for staff and Ms. Rollins for putting this all together. Y'all be safe.
You too. Thank you. Thank you, staff.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.